All right. Hey. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hey, I'm Brother Brian, right here on KIEZ 106.7 FM, the voice of the community. Hey, and I'm honored again I'm honored again to have Brother Marcus here as he comes each and every week. He's ready, he's fired up to sit down at the community roundtable and discuss what's going on in our community. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Oh man, I'm great. Good to be here, man. Happy to be at the round table, like always. Just ready to work.
Yeah, I know before we got started, you said you was feeling a little bit under the weather, but nonetheless, that still didn't stop you from being here.
Oh no,
But some people, they mess around and hit their toe. They stop working for 2 or 3 months and everything, but you still keep it moving.
oh no, I can't do that. If I stone my toe, I gotta keep working. If I get sick, I gotta work through it. It is what it is. I mean, some of this stuff they ain't got no symptoms. I mean, I know cure for. I know you in the blind with it, so you don't know. So you just got to keep on pushing. The body, a natural healer, it'll work itself out.
Okay. Make sure you definitely take your medication every day, which I call it your diet and exercise.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Brother Mark, tell the family what we do each and every time we come to the community roundtable and we sit down and we dialogue and we break bread and we break it bread so we can E.A.T.
E.A.T for us is an acronym which means evaluate all things. I'm gonna say it again for those who might not have heard it. E.A.T for us is an acronym which means evaluate all things. That's what we do here at the round table. Evaluate all things.
And that's what we have to do each and every week, each and every day. We must evaluate all things. Today, family, we're going to sit down. We're sitting down at the round table. Once again, I want to thank you for listening in. Thank you for focusing in. We're going to talk about pretty much two table topics here. The first one is what we've been hearing in the community dealing with the United States Postal Service. And also, then we're going to jump into criminal justice system. So we're going to first start off, Brother Mark, talking about the U.S.P.S, better known as we all know the United States Postal System or Service. And the question is for the community, is there a need for the United States Postal System today?
I mean, this debate been going on a long time now. They've been trying to uh, stop, get rid of the postal service, you know, to uh, but I mean, I don't understand it, but because we need it, because if not, other companies will have a monopoly on the postal service. They say five billion some odd dollars came through the postal service last year, but they don't have enough money to keep it funded. I don't understand that. It don't make any sense to me, you know. And the people provide the money because they buy postage. So so the money is there. Why you don't have adequate enough funding to keep it going? It don't make any sense. Don't
Yeah,
make any
yeah,
sense.
yeah. We definitely need to. That's what we want to do. We want to EAT, evaluate all things. We want to evaluate that concept and truly get a better understanding of what the challenge is. So, but first, we want to start off the history of the USPS. Just like you and I, we first started off in radio. We were actually in a physical studio. Well, I take that back. The concept of the voice of the community first started when we first met each other and we collaborated on Winsboro Road at Supreme Mark. We will always have discussions going on about what's taking place in our community, what the current issues are, how people are voicing their opinion on what's going on. Then we moved it from the actual in the community in order to get a broad audience, and then we moved it to the radio. And at the radio station, we went inside the booth actually discussing, talking to over 50,000 individuals. And today, our audience is even broader because now we're on a different medium. So we went from the medium of being actual face-to-face to the medium of actually being on the radio. And now we're on the radio slash an actual social media medium. And the reason I bring that up is because that's what the Postal Service is actually, when they were created, they were created for the medium. The medium at that time was based on the communication medium, where there was no cell phones, where there was no internet, there was no social media. So the only way people
Yes.
communicated was through the mail. Now, today we look at the communication medium being the United States Postal Service versus a broadcast medium. The broadcast medium is exactly what we're doing now.
Yeah.
You're in a state, I'm in a different state, but we can still communicate without a problem. So we have to evaluate the true need of the Postal Service today. Is the Postal Service just a communication medium, or can they actually maneuver in this broadcast medium? But your question was you don't understand it. Yeah, because it can be very confusing, because the post office for years have been profitable up until the year of 2006, when the federal government changed the way that the post office actually funds the individual's retirement. And
Right.
how they were doing it prior to 2006 is that if they had this year 200 people retiring plus the other retirees, they funded that mechanism. But now they have to
Right.
fund it where they have to fund whoever's retired plus an additional 75 years going ahead. So if you and I was able to get employed by the
So
post office today, they have to fund our retirement 75 years in advance. And once that happened, that's when the post office started losing
so
money.
they putting it so they putting an extreme budget out front. 75 years is a lot of money to put out front and then not gain any profit. $5.7 billion come through those channels, and then 199 people retire in the process of that. You got to put 75 years times 199. So that's a whole lot of cash flow. But I mean, see, the federal government and the government, we got some antiquated systems anyway. We need to overhaul them, look at them, and evaluate them and say, okay, let's go back and do something different. Let's go back to the old way and keep it moving. And instead of putting the 75 years out front, let's go back to prior what we used to do in 2006. And then the post office, the people in the post office will keep their job. Those jobs will still be available for people that's currently working in the United States Postal Service. Because if they cut that service, it's gonna deplete a multitude of jobs from state to state, city to city. So, but in actuality, the way technology is now, you don't have to have nobody to send you no mail. They can send you an email and tell you that, oh, you have to be in court, or you got a traffic ticket. They send you an email, tell you got a traffic ticket, you need to be in court, or if you got to go to the doctor, they send you an email and tell you can go. You got to go to the doctor or fax you some information. You don't have to have it come through the mail. Most of everything that comes through the mail today, right now, is junk mail. They give you a lot of advertising that come through the mail. You might have 2 or 3 bills that come through, which is I mean, it's a good system, and I think we need it, because I don't think we need Prime, FedEx, and DHL having a monopoly on the postal service, and then the prices of shipping stuff go up and up and up.
Okay. All right. I mean, you make so many great points. So let's try to break that down, what you're sharing with us. You're talking about the system itself. And yeah, we definitely have to attack each and every system that comes before us, because we need to identify what was the purpose of the system at the time it was created. Does it actually feel a need today? And then you also mentioned with the USPS, looking at first class mail service versus the parcel service. Now, on the parcel side, you're exactly right. There's a lot of competition out there. You named several of them. You're exactly right. But on the first class service, we think about it, there's very little first class service competition, because things you mentioned, that we can use alternative methods now to communicate without a problem. So the post office now actually generates so much money. They become competitive on the parcel side. But let's think back. When the post office was created, there was very, very little competition. But today, there's much more competition. So now the mechanism has changed where they have to fund 75 years of retirement plus stay competitive with the current market. And keep in mind, even though it is a government agency, they cannot just automatically increase rates without getting it approved. So they are at a disadvantage. But we also have to look at what you just mentioned that was so vital. In the communication outlet, not just person to person, you and I, but also, as you mentioned, what if someone gets called for jury duty? That today goes through the traditional mail. What about also individuals that have some type of citation from the local law enforcement authorities? And that information is sent through the traditional mail. Also, what's coming up in November, not only for our state, the state of Louisiana, dealing with voting by mail, but nationally, this becomes a challenge, which is going to be done through the traditional first class postal service. So we have to look at all of these avenues, what's going on, the communication aspect. It is still alive and well, but more so the transition is taking a little bit longer. And so if it's taking longer, do we just cease and desist that method? Or do people just get left out the loop, and due to the old, as you mentioned, antiquated system, they fall victim to the antiquated system?
Yeah. And then, you know, a lot of talk about it is because of the voting process, this particular election. So they really want, Donald Trump was talking about doing away with that because he didn't feel like it was going to be adequate enough, voting through the mail would be adequate enough to to rule a person as a president at this particular time. So he started talking about he wanted to do away with the United States Postal Service. So, I mean, there's a lot of politics in this stuff. So we got to look at that stuff and say, wow, man, how can we help the government or the system become a better system? Because $5.7 billion is a lot of money to be exchanging hands for the mail process. I mean, golly. Now take that system and give it to someone who actually been in the system before, understands the system. Let him or her reevaluate it, redo the system, and start a private entity outside of the federal government for a group of people who will become company owners at that particular time, or use the postal service people that's currently working right now, and instead of depleting their jobs, get a system to them. They know the process already. Let them become the owners of the postal service instead of just doing actually away with the United States Postal Service. And then they can come back and figure out how they'll do their retirement system as well, because they'll become owners of the company, you know, and the government don't have to worry about it because the money is coming through. Now it's about being properly ran. It's to come as the qualified people in place. Who is the United States Postal General? Is he qualified or she qualified to be over the system and make it work, you know? So I think, you know, it's a lot of things that can happen. It's just about us, or just about the people saying, okay, I'm with helping, you know, because it's for the people, by the people. Everything the government has is for the people, by the people, according to, you know, the Constitution. But you know how that goes. We always, you know, we the last ones that, you know, last one hired, the first one fired, you know. So it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, you say it is what it is. That's what Michelle Obama just said at the DNC a couple of days ago. It is what it is. But you're exactly right. You present a lot of points, and a lot of people don't really know you or understand you. You break it down you attempt to break it down to the most simplest concept of community economic development. So you're talking about looking at the post office as privatizing it, but also as a cooperative. Take the people that currently know the business, people that are currently in the business, and actually create a co-op, community to community, because the job is getting done. Now, if the job is getting done, the business is generating revenue. Now actually allow the people in the community that service the community to actually benefit in that form. So that is an option, because it's not going to go away. First class mail will not go away. But you did mention the so-called junk mail. Yeah, it has come to a stage in the post office system that it's a lot of commercialization. A lot of businesses or organizations are actually sending a lot of mail, and that's how the post office generates a lot of revenue. So all this has to be taken into full consideration before we come to the conclusion of dissolving or just doing what the post office has done since 2012. They have not been able to pay, my understanding, they have not been able to pay into the pension since 2012. So that's why this debt is slowly rising. Now, as of yesterday, actually yesterday, the House actually passed a bill for 25 billion. But there's a big but. The post office was asking for 75 billion bailout and a $25 billion loan. So we're still at a major deficit. We're talking about major, big money. So we have to think outside the box. And the old system that was in place was for a reason. We have to think outside of that box and become more creative.
I mean, again, $25 billion they asked to borrow 25. You got 5 billion coming through the channels already. You don't know how to utilize that properly. How are you going to utilize the 25 billion properly? You know, it's something has to be put in place where people, the efficiency of the postal service has to be changed. You know, the inner workings. You know, I mean, ain't no way you getting this kind of money and you're not able to sustain the business in its entirety. You know, I mean, I think it has to be overhauled and looked at real closely. You know, get I always say this: get the qualified people put in place that says, okay, I'm gonna run this business like it's mine and make sure that we get a profit from it. You know, and it's for the people. You know, this service is for the people. Prime, FedEx, DHL, all these different companies. They doing the same thing, and how are they able to survive? And you saying that you got $5 billion that's coming through the channels, and you're not able to survive. You're not able to buy new trucks, change, you know, downsize your hubs. Whatever you got to do to make it work, do that. But don't kill these people's jobs because, I mean, you know what it is, 30 million people still out of work due to COVID. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be some consequences if you do this. It's just really gonna be. You know, we got to look at that and figure it out from another standpoint, because just dismantling it wouldn't work.
E.A.T, evaluate all things. And that's where we are. We're talking about E.A.T, evaluate all things, dealing with the U.S.P.S, United States Postal Service, or the United States Postal System. The system that's currently in place, it seems that it's not working, but we must truly evaluate it, because prior to 2006, it was working up until the government actually attempted to, with this new bill, and it's called the Postal Accountability Enhancement Act, where they had to pre-fund the retirement for 75 years in the future. So that became the challenge once the government actually got involved in it with this Postal Accountability Enhancement Act. Now, I reached out to my family earlier today, and my cousin, which lives in Arizona, Rosetta, I asked the same question: is there a need for the U.S.P.S? And she answered yes, because in the event if Amazon was put in a position where they fell behind. And that was so funny to me, because it seems that now Amazon has become the big trend setter, has become the big name brand right now. And because we see the post office delivering packages for Amazon. We don't see the post office delivering anything for UPS or FedEx. So Amazon has now become the big trend setter, dealing with parcels all the time, packages. So maybe we need to, as you mentioned all the time, Brother Marcus, bring everyone to the round table, sit down and evaluate all things to see how the USPS can actually become profitable.
I mean, just like Prime, you know, they allow
That's
individuals
Amazon.
to buy routes, and you know, yeah, they let them buy into the routes, and then that particular area is yours. And then you make the funding off of that. You know, everybody. He ain't trying to hold the whole entire routing system to itself. Jeff Bezos, this dude's one of the richest people in the United States. You know, he just created a system where, you know, things get shipped right away. You know, you get it today. I mean, you buy it today. Next day it's at your house. You know, so I mean, if he has this system set up, then you not to pick his brain. Man, how can we run the United Postal Service a little bit different than what we currently running it? Then he might say, okay, well, we could do it this way. Well, I'll help y'all with new trucks and this and the third, and then we become partners. You dig what I'm saying? But because we ain't sitting down with each other and ain't talking about how it could be beneficial for everybody to be a part of this system, then you know, we just keep throwing money in the wind. The federal government talking about asking for 25 billion. Where they getting this money from? Where they getting all this money? They gave $2.2 trillion to COVID-19, and then nobody hardly any people get any of the money. You know, it don't make any sense to me. But I know where they getting the money from, Federal Reserve. You know, but we got to understand how all this stuff works, because it's one big puzzle, and it's kind of confusing because we got the little bitty pieces to the puzzle. You got to make sure they match up. Hey man, I don't understand it, but hey, it warrants. Know what it wants? It warrants study. You have to study this stuff in order to figure it out in its entirety and make it work for a group of people across the board.
That's right. It definitely warrants deeper study, deeper evaluation of what's actually taking place. But I need to go back just a little bit with what you were sharing, because once again, people have to understand who you are. You think economic development constantly, and you put it out there: prime, distribution points, trucks. So we got to break that down. What Brother Marcus was indicating was that Amazon, which owns Prime, they actually have their own distribution points in some of the bigger cities, where it opens the door for economic development, where you can actually partner up with Amazon and to be a distributor. You actually can partner up, and you get set up as an entrepreneur with your own distribution center and your own delivery trucks. So the opportunity is out there, but we only know that the opportunity is there if we sit down and evaluate all things, the opportunities that actually take place in our community. So now they're not here in our small little town, Monroe, but do we need an Amazon here in Monroe? Why can't we actually create our own distribution center, our own distribution trucks, take like a downtown area? Because the challenge is with the first class mail, letter to letter from person to person. If you're in the downtown area, you can have local carriers right there in the downtown area, as they do in the big cities, by bicycle or walking to get the letter from one place to the next. There's many, many opportunities that exist. We have to sit down and evaluate all things and look at what actually takes place in our economic development circularization or ecosystem. Understand that ecosystem, and now we penetrate where the opportunity is, so we can actually do better for ourselves, our families, and our communities.
Yeah. I mean, even look at FedEx. Fred Smith, I think that's his guy's name. He's still surviving. Even after Prime that came up, become the number one provider of products or whatever, shipping. You know, he's still surviving. He got the same kind of system where people buy into the routes. They own their own trucks. They get drivers to drive for them. They get a percentage of the proceeds upon the shipping, and there it is. You know, it's a working system. You know, same kind of system could work with the United States Postal Service. You know, the people who currently in the truck, let them buy the truck. You know, and keep it on moving. That's their route, and they just keep on moving, and then the money that the route make, that's how they keep their trucks up, and that's how they put money in their pocket. You know, it can work. You know, it's just about, do the government want it to work, or do they want to sit down and come up with that kind of program? You know, because I mean, it is what it is. But we got this again, the studying of efficiency, how stuff can work efficiently to be able to provide a particular service for a group of people. That's all. You provide a group a service that's actually needed in a community, from state to state, city to city. So if you somebody like Donald Trump saying, nah, I want to do away with the United Postal Service because I don't think it's adequate enough. The service ain't gonna be it ain't doable to be able to cash your votes in. That's why people are talking about it again. They had stopped talking about that, but now they're talking about it again because this guy looking at the election coming up in November. You know, the ballots going through mail. He's saying, I don't want no ballots going through mail. But I mean, the people gonna speak regardless of the circumstances, whether they go through the mail or they go to their polling site, because it's gonna happen. It's gotta happen.
Yeah, it must happen. It will happen. So that's what we have to do. So we all need to sit down and evaluate what's actually taking place, dealing with the U.S.P.S. Look at the opportunities, look at some of the shortcomings, and allow it to benefit us in our community, because we are those that are in the community where it must work. Well, Brother Marcus, we got something going on in Louisiana right now as we speak. Two tornadoes, or I'm sorry, hurricanes that are coming towards Louisiana simultaneously, which is named Marco and Laura. It's going to hit I think tomorrow and Tuesday or Wednesday. And from my understanding, this has never happened, or it hasn't happened in a number of years. And so the state of Governor Edwards has put the state under an emergency declaration right now, more so the lower parishes versus up north, where we're catching a lot of that overflow of that rain. But we're currently at a state of emergency in the state of Louisiana. Number one, COVID. Number two storms simultaneously will hit the Gulf of Louisiana.
Wow, I didn't know that. I hadn't been looking at the news or nothing. I just been sitting back, trying to get well. I was, a little under the weather, so
you sitting back like George Jefferson.
News, but I got to pay attention to that, make sure. Oh yeah. Nah, I'm just, sometimes you got to sit back and let the body heal, let the mind, get some relief, and just refocus. That's what I've been doing for the last couple of days, But I still been working. I go out, come back in, just staying focused. That's it.
Well, that's what we have to do. Stay focused. And a word out to the people in Louisiana, go to www.getagameplan.org and get your emergency essentials in order in event if anyone or someone has to evacuate. Number one, remember water. We need at least 1 gallon per day that in the event if you have to evacuate. 2, mask, wipes, alcohol, disinfectant, clothing, first aid kits, and also do not forget emergency documents. We're talking about birth certificates, driver's license. Get a photocopy, because one thing pretty much no one ever loses or misplaces their phone. So take a picture of all of that, and so you can keep that telephone with you in the event if you need those documents, because once they've been ruined or damaged or misplaced, it becomes very challenging today to actually get those replaced. So getagameplan.org, or more so, take care of yourself, your community, and your neighbors. Brother Mark, we're going to get into this thing called the system again, but the system we're going to talk about today is the major components of the criminal justice system. Now, the criminal justice system has pretty much 3 components, and the 3 components we're looking at: the law enforcement, the courts, and also the corrections. So criminal justice system. The reason we're bringing this up, because the system itself has to be reevaluated. Some people say that the system currently works. Some people say that the system doesn't work. So we're going to sit down and E.A.T evaluate, does this criminal justice system work? Or I like to call it a perpetual punishment, because the individual can, for a violation, receive a ticket today, and as they go through the process or the system of receiving a ticket and all the different components of the criminal justice system, 10 years down the line, still feel the effects of perpetual punishment. But in actuality, a person should be punished one time and be allowed to live their lives according to the current laws that are put in place. But we have to evaluate all that. So, Brother Marcus, does the criminal justice system work?
I, I laugh at that because I've been in the system before, and I don't think it works. Not at this juncture, not at this point. I mean, it it need to be overhauled. It needs to be looked at thoroughly, just like the United States Postal Service.
Well, I think we need to break down. When I say does it work, I guess, do we truly have an answer to the end of that question? How do we define what works? What is the ultimate goal of this system?
It's supposed to be rehabilitation, but when you don't have nothing in place to rehabilitate the individual, then there's no rehabilitation. You understand? So I mean, again, like in the federal institutions, uh, upon entry, you have to go to school, right? But you don't have to go to school nothing but 180 days if you don't have your GED or your
I mean, what do you mean when you say that? You must go to school.
they'll place you in school, but you can drop out after 180 days. You know, if you feel like you don't want to further the process, you can drop out. You can go to work inside the institution instead of going to the school program. You know, and then you got to imagine 85% of the people that's incarcerated is totally illiterate. Not able to read or write, and they're not gonna tell you that they can't read or write. You understand? So you know, even that in that process, you talking about somebody going before a judge with his process, with his lawyer, and accepting the plea, and he or she don't even know what they accepted. They just accepted the plea just to be able to get out in the next 5 to 10 years or whatever the case may be, not really understanding the whole process in its entirety. So, man, a lot of this stuff need to be looked at. Again, I say 85% of the people that's incarcerated can't read or write. That's heavy. And then it's injustice and bias in the system too, because we make up 67% of the population in prisons on the state level and the Fed level. And we only make up 13% of the population in the United States. It don't make any sense. And then like on the Louisiana side, we only make up what? 23% of the population, and we make up 66% of the prison population in Louisiana. That don't make any sense, man. But because of the system how it's set up, we guilty to proven innocent instead of innocent until proven guilty. I mean, it just don't make any sense, man. When you look at the numbers, it's what in Louisiana is 60,000 people on parole, 40,000. Oh, let me look at my numbers. Yeah.
All right, while you look that up, let me just jump in here real quick because you were mentioning about the education component. Now, the criminal justice system has three major components: the police, the courts, and corrections. And your underlying agenda or focus is the education of an individual. So, I mean, that would really make sense if a person, as you're mentioning, is functionally illiterate, even from the initial component, police, courts, or correction. So if a person really doesn't understand when a police stops them, that can be something held against them. Courts, if they don't really understand what's going on in court, that can be held against them. And three, while actually incarcerated, if they are functionally illiterate, that can be held against them.
Oh, yeah. But the judge will tell you, oh, ignorance is 9/10 of the law. That's your fault. That's what they tell you. But here you are with a person that really don't understand. Yeah, I committed a crime. Most of the crimes are non-violent crimes, and the people sitting in jail for 10 to 15 drug offenses, 15 years for you just seen the guy in Louisiana. They just let him go. He had a life sentence for a $30 bag of weed. He had a life sentence in the state of Louisiana. He was in Angola somewhere for $30 selling bags on a bag of weed, and he had been actual served in the United States Army, but came home, couldn't find a job, and started trying to hustle and sold a $30 bag of weed. and had a life sentence. They just commuted his sentence the other day, you know, and I think they let him go. But I mean, hey, the system, man, that don't make any sense. And then they change, they do this, you know, convicted felon with a firearm, convicted felon with a firearm. According to the Constitution, even if you're a convicted felon, you can have a firearm. But they'll charge you as a convicted felon with a firearm. That's 20 years on the federal level. Ooh. Now you got a slave for 20 years to do whatever work it is inside these institutions to keep on compounding this system. Come on, man. You talking about the war on drugs when somebody possession with intent to distribute, 10 to life for 50 grams of crack cocaine or better. It done changed the law a little bit now, but I mean, that's what it was 10 years ago. You know, you had 50 grams of crack cocaine, you automatically was sentenced from 10 to life. You know, 10 years to life, man. That's a long time. You know, and then if most guys go in, they don't have, man, I got 20 years. What I look like going to school? I might not even make it out. You know, it is what it is. The system need to be overhauled. Like I say, in the state of Louisiana, you got 60,000 people on parole, 30,000 on probation, 34,000 in state prisons, 12,000 in local jails, 3,100 in federal institutions. Then you got 830 kids locked up in the state of Louisiana. This is 119,000 individuals. We only make it what 4 million some odd people in the state of Louisiana, and 100-some thousand is currently going through the system, and untold numbers of them went through the system and still going through through a continual cycle of going back and forth through the system. Man, that system don't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, you just once again you dropped a lot on us, so we're gonna try to break that down so the listeners and viewers can actually see what's going on, because you get so passionate with it and you start dropping all these numbers. But you, I should have kept some notes, but the last thing you mentioned about the population in these different jails. So yeah, we got to break in we're talking about the 3 components of a criminal justice system: the policing, the courts, and the corrections. Now you're talking about, you jump to the correctional side where there's actually jails and also some type of correctional control where they become on parole or probation. So in the jails side of it itself, yeah, you're right. There's fed jails, there's state jails, there's juvenile jails, there's parish jails, there are local jails, and even Native Americans, they have an actual jail also. So we're talking about breaking that one element down to an additional subset of elements of jails itself. Now, you also mentioned that's just in jail, incarceration. Outside of the incarceration, correctional control, I'll mention that again, correctional control, those that are out of jail on parole, those that are out of jail on probation. And they tell me that it is so hard to actually follow the probational, the technical laws or rules, because any little small technical violation, you can actually be violated and get back into incarceration. And so that's an untold number of those that are on parole or probation also.
Oh, yeah.
So if there's a need for better education, because the first question I asked, what was the actual does the criminal justice system work? Work being a verb, mean action, movement, getting something done. And you answer in the affirmative, it should be about rehabilitation. So if one of the underlying components is actual being functionally literate, a better education, I guess, as you say, connect the dots. When we're playing dominoes, we're connecting the dots. We got to go all the way back to the beginning, to the big 6. The big 6 is laid out for us. That means that from early childhood education, middle school, high school, being able to understand that individuals can actually read, and as your major thing, you always say, comprehend. So if
Oh yeah.
the education system is failing us, and we already know the data says that if a person that reaches the third grade, if they are not reading or become functionally literate at the third grade level, the data starts showing the projection that major corporations start identifying the need for future jails out of using the
Yeah.
data for the third grade level education.
Yeah. Yeah. See, they already know. They already know that the data is out there. They already know that the young black male is reading on the third and fourth grade education level. You know, and they saying, okay, oh, you go out and commit a crime, we putting him in prison. You know, we're gonna make sure that he pays the cost. You know, but not only is he paying the cost, but the state is paying the cost. We pay the cost for an individual being in jail. We have to pay so much money, and then it costs to be in jail. It take when you in jail, if you sick, you got to pay $3 a co-pay just to go to the doctor inside the jail. You know, uh, it costs to call home to the family members. I mean, it's a whole lot of factors in this thing that's beneficial to the people who currently own the jail. See, you talked about the jails that the state own, but you ain't talk about the jails that the CCAs of America own, the
Private
correctional
jails.
operation, yeah, the private jails. They out there, man. They making profit off these jails. They emptied a whole jail in the state of in Louisiana, in Monroe, and put nothing but foreigners in there that came from the border. They right there on Richwood Road, at the Highway 15 at the jail. A whole group of foreigners. I think they said 2,000 inmates. Come on, man.
Yeah,
Empty the
let
whole
me
jail.
add on to that also. What you're talking about are the federal jails now, or the jails for immigration, where as a nation, the state of California is the #1 place for immigration facilities. And I think last time I checked a couple of years ago, they had like 15 or 16. The second state is the state of Louisiana. We have about 11 or 12 for immigration. So we have to evaluate everything that's going on.
When I was in prison in 1995, uh, in Marksville, Louisiana, they had immigration up there in Marksville, Louisiana. And the federal system went up all across the country in 1995 because of the immigrants. The Immigration Nationalization Board wasn't allowing them guys to be set free. So they caused a riot. And these riots went up all across the system, you know. And man, you talking about they tore up some prisons and burned some stuff down just because the Nationalization Board wouldn't allow them to go home, man. You got guys being in jail 10 and 15 years, don't even have no crime, no criminal history. They just housing them. They never probably go home. You know, it don't make this stuff don't make any sense. Like I said, you got to go in and evaluate this thing from just on paper. Look at it, see how it works. You talking about 60,000 people on probation and parole. 60,000 people, man, you're getting $56 or $60 per person for being on parole, on probation. Where the money going? Where's the money going? This thing is a money factor between some of this stuff. Again, the nonviolent criminal shouldn't be sitting in no jail for no 10 or 15, 20 years and letting the taxpayers pay the burden of that. That don't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. But because we don't bought into the fear factor. Oh, he a criminal. He a drug dealer. Oh, you rarely find a whole lot of murderous situations from city to city. If that be the case, then lock those individuals up for life if you have to. But don't put this kind of system, don't put this kind of burden on the public to be able to house 119,000 people inside these jails and facilities. That don't make it don't make any sense. That's why I said it doesn't work. Only reason it worked for me because I went in, I pushed for education for myself. I wanted to become literate. Even though I went to school, but I dropped out of school at that time in the 9th grade. And when I went inside, I was able to get my GED and further my education for is getting the associate degree in business. But I mean, I wanted that, you know. I was striving for that, you know. Even though I had a substantial amount of time, I said, man, I got to make sure I be able to go out there and eat, you know. Like you say, evaluate all things. I wanted to come out and create my own business, create my own job, and that's what I did, you know. Because I mean, if I could sell drugs, I know I can create my own business. You know, it is what it is. But when you don't think like that, you fall victim to the system. The system will eat you up. You know. Then these people that's inside the system, they're not qualified to help you say, okay, well, let's evaluate who you are. Let's put you in this particular progressive mode to be able to get your education. You got a counselor, right? That he or she has to see 300 inmates on one side of the building, 300 inmates on the other side of the building. He or she can't map out no system for 300 inmates in the process. They saying shit, it's just a job for them. They ain't trying to help, you know. They're not trying to help. So the whole system has to be looked at and reevaluated and say, okay, instead of us putting this much funding to prisons, we'll put this much funding to the United States Postal Service. You know, you take some of that money out of the prison system and put it toward, you know, something that's going to be beneficial for the people instead of housing all these non-violent offenders for petty crimes. You know, people going to jail in California for stealing cookies and a pack of cigarettes and get a life sentence. You know, you get three different strikes, you're a habitual offender. Now the prosecutor, he has a vendetta out for you. He said, well, I'm enhance your charge. Now he can enhance you to a life sentence. He's smiling while he doing it. What? And nobody in the public is saying a word. Nobody, because they don't understand. Oh man, my dad just got a life sentence. He ain't had nothing but he was selling drugs. What? Life sentence. Don't make any sense. Don't make any sense.
So if it doesn't make sense, we have to get to the stage where it does make sense. And so when we do ask the question, does the criminal justice system work for the public? The question is, does it work? We have to identify, what does the word work mean? If it means rehabilitation, is it working? 2, is it meant for punishment? Is it working? That's what we have to identify. These individuals that are currently incarcerated, that are currently on paper, as we say, correctional control, they will come back to the community. And as they come back to the community, they will exchange commerce in our community. They will become voters. They will become landowners. They will become homeowners. They will actually get to the stage where they actually become voters in our community. And so we have to break that old false narrative when a person commits a nonviolent offense that they should be held accountable for the rest of their lives, which I call a perpetual punishment. We have to break that old mindset, that old narrative, because it's not working. What works in our community is to identify where were the shortcomings. And if, according to what you're saying, that when a person becomes incarcerated for some type of reason, they must, it's a directive for them to sign up for education. So that education component is being set up out there. However, it's up to the individual to continue that pathway to education. Just like in the free world, once a person gets to at a certain age, they no longer are forced to engage in education. It's up to them to continue their pathways. Now, there are some barriers in the free world with dealing with the cost of education, the access to certain specific curriculums or levels of education. Those are the things that we, as leaders in the community, we have to sit down, evaluate it, and change that old system. What is the system? It goes back to outside of the criminal justice system. It goes back to education. Once you understand the educational component, we start identifying, how did the police even come about? What is the need of the police? Once we know that, then we can move forward. Because police, the patty patrol, we have to know what that is about. Then from that point, we have to start identifying certain laws that were put on the books. What are the laws that are put on the books for arresting a man or a woman for not having a job? Were there jobs out there for certain individuals? So now, then we get into the sharecropping. Then we get into all the laws, the black codes, Jim Crow laws, voting rights. We have to become educated, or as we said at our roundtable, evaluate all things. And as we start to slowly evaluate, we start to stop accepting these public narratives that someone has put on us. As you just mentioned before you stop speaking, is that as we start to fund this criminal justice system, maybe we could have that 25 billion or 100 billion infusion of revenue that will go to the post office so people can communicate or create better opportunities in our system. Because ultimately, I believe all this thrives around the lack of being able to fund your own individual family, not provide a source of income.
Oh yeah. I mean, again, most of the crime that the dudes doing are nonviolent stuff. So they not out here really just doing nothing that's gonna be detrimental to anybody. And how much punishment do you have to get for a particular case? You know, again, nonviolent offense, a drug case. I got 10 years, 10, right? Then came out and was on 5 years paper. That's 15 years. I have to walk the thin line for 5 more years, you know? So I did 15 years in prison, you know? That, but I was prepared to shift my life, you know, because I had started to study something totally different, which is it's the economy, how life works. You know, I started to look at that from a different perspective, and I wasn't incarcerated no more. My mind wasn't in prison. You know, a lot of people's minds are in prison, you know, and they don't understand that they minds are in prison because they thinking from being in jail or being incarcerated in an institution. No, it's about the information that you have. You know, if you don't got the right information, you become a prisoner in your own mind. You see what I'm saying? So you can't figure out what you're gonna do with yourself. You know, you stuck and you just stuck. Now in life, you got to figure out what you're gonna do, how you're gonna do it, and move forward with that. You know, again, the criminal justice system has to be overhauled. You know, from the federal system to the state facilities, especially the state. You know, in the federal institutions, they have college curriculums that you can get involved in. And most of the state's institutions, they cut the continual education, which is college curriculums, out. You know, you just get your GED most time, and sometimes you can't even get that in some of the state institutions. So I mean, is the situation gonna benefit the person that goes inside the institution without him or her being able to get an adequate education so they can come out and do something productive inside the community? That's what has to be set up, something like that, you know. But it's not set up that way. Do a person come home from prison after doing 10 years, 15 years, don't have anything. They give you a bus pass, you know, and an outfit to come home in. You've been gone 15 years. What do you think you're gonna do? You coming out there and wow, I've been gone 15 years. The next person say, man, what I'm gonna do? You ain't got nowhere to stay. Nobody ain't, you know, the people that you was affiliated with, they done moved on. People done passed. You don't have nowhere to stay. So you go out there and commit an armed robbery as soon as you get out, trying to find a place to stay.
Well, that's what we need to evaluate. I mean, you make a good point. I mean, you definitely fine tune it. A great point, and the point is, from a psychological aspect, when we make these laws, put these laws in place, and we convict individuals, the day someone is arrested, if they're arrested, as you mentioned, 10 years, then come out and they're placed on paper for 5 years. That 10 years, if a person is functionally illiterate, we arrest their psychological human development and their psychological mindset. So if they're in jail for 10 years, if they are not implementing some type of rehab regimen in the facility, once they're released in 10 years, they are still at the same psychological mentality. Whatever reason that crime was committed, if it was not addressed in them 10 years, they're going to come back out and be released on that same mindset. And it becomes an even worse condition because now they can no longer live in, correct me if I'm wrong, they cannot receive any federal funds for Pell Grants to go to school. They can't live in any public housing. I
You right.
think they're not even eligible for type of food
You
stamps.
right.
Number one, in the
You right.
open market, once they fill out an application, if they can get past filling out the application, and they every application that says, have you ever been convicted of this, a felony, convicted of this, they check that box. Now they're outcast. So that's why I said perpetual punishment. So we have to, as a body, evaluate if we're arresting someone for 10 years for a non-violent offense. It's only logical that in 10 years, if this person has not excelled, they're going to come out and repeat what's going on from 10 years ago.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the cycle gonna repeat itself because I mean, again, like you say, I come out and fill out an application, and the first question that they ask, have you been convicted of a felony? That alleviates me from the door. Now we can't use you, man. Where you been for the last 10 years? You know, you don't got no work history. I'm saying, man, when I was incarcerated, well, I'm sorry. You know, now what you gonna do? Now your mind is wondering how you're gonna be able to provide for yourself. You ultimately end up back trying to hustle again, or committing some stupid offense just to be able to have some money in your pocket or whatever, because you're behind the 8 ball. You know, the system doesn't work. You know, again, you have to look at it for what it is. You come out on parole and probation paying $56 a month. Don't get it from. They double, triple punishing you inside the institution. You can't even, when you come out, ain't no HUD housing. You can't go apply for no HUD house or nothing like that. You can't go apply for college until a certain amount of time is up after the conviction. You know, all of these things are against you at this particular point upon your release. If you're not a free thinker and a person that can be able to create your own job, you out back. You guys out back for real. And so you talking about 119,000 people continually doing this cycle over and over again. It's millions of people in Louisiana, and millions don't been through the system. Hey,
and we just talk
and the
about
system doesn't work.
Yeah,
Not from the manner and.
I missed that. You froze up on me. What was your last?
And then you talk about, I mean, not. And you talk about everything from the state level and the fed level. It doesn't work. The state and the fed level, it doesn't work. And again, the population, how we make up 66% on the state level and 67% on the fed level. The Fed has 100 institutions. They used to have 117, but they got unicorns. They got a system now. They got a cold-blooded system. Now, if you want to utilize, but you never coming home in the Fed. Man, most time you got, most of all federal cases was drug offenses, So now they taking gun cases, 20 years, 15 years for a gun, 20 years for drug, career criminals, career enterprise or whatever, career criminal enterprise. They citing dudes for that, Man, this stuff doesn't work, man. And if we don't get involved to show that it doesn't work, then the system is gonna be what it's gonna be. It's gonna be a continual cycle. This stuff been happening for years. Nobody's talking about it, because we worried about COVID-19 right now. We're worried about, is the president gonna stop the United States Postal Service so he can remain president? Whatever the case may be, we have to be thinking about everything that's going on in society, so we can help the people that need the help. Those that's incarcerated need the help. My friend girl, she just came home from she had a life sentence. They commuted her sentence, you know. Uh, on it was a murder case, but it was a domestic violence case. But I mean, her boyfriend was beating on her at the time. You know, something happened where she shot him. But I mean, they the time didn't fit the crime at the time. It just didn't. It just didn't. They offered her 20 years. She didn't take the 20 years. They gave her a life sentence. They gave it to her because she's saying, "Look, man, I ain't do nothing wrong. The dude came and aggressed me, but because didn't have the adequate capital to be able to hire a lawyer to be able to defend her in this particular case, she ultimately ended up having a life sentence. But I'm glad they commuted her sentence recently. Now she home doing. I mean, hopefully she'll be doing better by getting her a job and all of that. But I mean, those kind of things are happening all across the country, man. People sitting in jail for nothing, for crimes that they shouldn't be sitting in jail for.
All right. Well, Brother Marcus, we're going to end it with that. Basically, the last part, the takeaway for me was that we have to get involved as a community, and we must evaluate the old so-called laws, and because it started to construct how we think about everything. And the laws back then, yesterday, were for a specific purpose. Today, it's a new day. So just like a person gets incarcerated for 10 years, if we don't make a change today, that means that we're just perpetuating the old laws that happened yesterday and in today's state and time.
Oh yeah, and the young got to realize that these people are plotting for them. They're plotting for their life, and they not understanding it because they thinking, oh, I want this, I want some right now money, as they call it in the street. Oh, I'm gonna go out and sell drugs. Now, man, you don't really want to do that because I mean, the system will swallow you up and keep you for a long time, and and once you get inside the system, you behind, you become behind, and it's hard to catch up. Hard to catch up, So, I mean, I just want to leave them with that, man. Stay focused, figure out what you got to do with the rest of your life, and not get caught up in those streets for us trying to become a drug dealer, caught up in some mischievous, murderous stuff, because it ain't worth it.
All right, Brother Marcus, I'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sir.